I was given these documents to sign for the rights-of-way for PennDOT, and the one is along Anvil at 934, and that one's all clear-cut. The one that I am concerned about, and I'm asking for reconsideration, is the one at the Expo and the county. I had asked for time to finish due diligence, and that wasn't granted at the last meeting, but I became aware of a breach in the, so I really think that to add water that could contain oil and salts could contaminate groundwater, and that would be in violation of law. So I think that we need to rethink this and ask PennDOT to direct the water somewhere else.
So I think what you're referring to is, if I understood your email, is you found 3 sinkholes in the basin.
3 sinkholes and several depressions.
Okay.
And the sinkhole contained debris, construction debris, and lawn waste.
I was unaware of the sinkholes. I mean, I meet quarterly with the Expo. We, as the sort of the guiding committee that resolves any issues with tenants, that sort of thing, any property type issues. I was unaware of them. The mowing crew hasn't said anything, but knowing about them, we can simply fix them. My recommendation.
Right. Fixing them is definitely needed, but also the fact that they would be moving land within the stormwater basin that was designed by a local engineer. There's already a lawsuit in court involving sinkholes in a storm basin. I don't think that PennDOT wants to be in the position of adding to our situation, because where those sinkholes were, they probably will reopen in a 100-year or 500-year storm event, or something more than the 5-gallon bucket event.
Well, I don't think they're disturbing the retention basin at all. I don't think there's any work being done to the berm or the retention basin at all.
Well, because we sold off some of the land, and now they want additional 30 feet wide and however long to come on. It appears to me, I have some pictures.
But they're not going to disturb. I mean, it's not as though they're bulldozing the berm to the retention or anything. It gives them the ability to set foot on that area to do the work of the turning lane.
I would hate to jeopardize Mr. Steckbeck's design in any way. I don't know if there's compaction of soils or layers of clay, order of the soil has to be put back in. I really think we should give him an opportunity to address that so that it is done properly, so that we are not mixing the stormwater, and that's a big concern of mine. The road runoff in an area where there's no sink, potentially polluting the groundwater. So I would make a motion that we contact PennDOT and also that we contact Mr. Steckbeck to let them know of the sinkhole situation, and if they could take a look at it with the design and what should be, if there should be any consideration to changing this to protect the groundwater. Is there a second to the motion? I won't sign this, obviously, because I think that there's a problem. I think we're letting the county open for liability if we go through with this, and we should certainly think about the public here and not put ourselves into a situation where we could have additional sinkholes that are a public hazard or potential groundwater contamination. I think they're probably in the area, there are some farmers with wells. They're not on public water and sewer. I think the line for, if I remember, comprehensive plan and Earl Meyer, I think the line for development was to end. I think everybody south of there is on public wells, as far as I know.
Taking into account your concern, Commissioner, willing to make a motion?
I already made a motion. You can
No,
make
I'm
another
making
one?
a different motion.
Oh, okay.
I would be willing to make a motion to have Steckbeck, the engineer, review the retention basin as far as sinkhole damage and so on now, and to make a recommendation for repair. That would be my motion, and as far as granting PennDOT the the construction easement, I have no issue with that. It's not a permanent change that would affect the retention basin. It's just as Jamie indicated, just making that area available for them to park their equipment and things like that. So concern is for the public safety, then I think we should address that issue directly.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
Okay.
I just don't think it's, I think the point was that we should just fix the sinkholes if we are aware that they exist. I don't know that we need to have a motion and get Steckbeck. I just think that's over just reacting to, but that's my opinion. I don't feel that that's a step that we should do, but Bill,
Well, you know, that's fine. I just tried to address the concern. And I personally think that if there are sinkholes there, they should be properly repaired, and it's not, doesn't involve concrete construction like if it was under a roadway. There is an acceptable way of repairing sinkholes in situations like that, and it's not a very expensive process. We don't need a motion to have that done, then I withdraw my motion.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. It's been properly seconded.
It has?
Yes, it has.
Oh,
Yes.
you seconded,
Yes.
okay, all right.
So if there's no other discussion, is there any other discussion? If there is none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. How extensive of a study do I want? I would like it reviewed by a professional engineer. That is what I had asked for from day one, to give us a recommendation on whether or not the stormwater basin was capable of accepting additional water. Obviously, in some storm event, this basin failed and sinkholes developed. That's not the fault of anyone, but to protect it, to protect the groundwater and accommodate appropriate recharge of that groundwater, the stormwater basin has to be maintained, and it also has to be reconstructed properly. If Mr. Steckbeck can look at that and say, yes, it failed, this is what we need to do, and as a professional engineer, I think that this is going to hold up and we're not going to have any more problems, you know, fine. But if he sees a problem with accepting road runoff that would be in addition to the calculations that he made for that stormwater basin, then he needs to tell us that, and then we have to revisit it.
Well, first of all, there's not going to be additional road runoff. The folks talked to us, and he told us, and I accept it. I trust people, Commissioner. And when an engineer comes in here and jeopardizes his license, telling us very clearly that, I think he gave an example of a 25-year storm, that it would be the equivalent to a 5-gallon bucket. Now, I believe that man, okay?
That's
so
very
I don't want to continue to say that they're going to build this road and they're going to dump water into our retention basin. That's not their intent, and I don't think that's going to happen. So we don't need to pay our engineer to do a study that these folks already paid an engineer to do, and it's controlled by North Cornwall Township. They have their ordinances. They're going to oversee this work. They're going to be issuing permits. PennDOT is issuing permits. The DEP is going to be involved. So I don't think we have an overabundant responsibility to re-engineer things after all these folks have been paid to do the engineering. So I don't want to be involved in that kind of process. I think if there are sinkholes there, they should be repaired properly. And that's what I would like the advice from the engineer, not a study. Just the advice, his detention basin that he designed, and you're showing us pictures that there was not necessarily a failure of the basin, but a sinkhole that occurred, or several sinkholes. They need to be repaired. We need his advice on how that repair should be done. That's it. That's the extent of it.
Well, 2 points. Number one is the 25-year storm may not have caused the sinkholes. It may have been the 100-year storm or the 500-year storm between things like Tropical Storm Lee and the others that occurred. And in addition, I think that everything that was presented was accurate. And the only thing is that I don't know where it's written that PennDot law or whatever would supersede local property owner responsibility or township ordinances or anything like that. So that is why I think if we have to have a properly functioning stormwater drain basin, then we need to follow up and make sure it's right. And if just repairing the sinkholes is all that it takes, that's great. But if in the interim, you know, Steckbeck comes back and says something else, and once he's aware of it, even if we don't pass this, he may have some opinions. And, you know, he might tell me, Mrs. Litz, everything is okay, and I stake my reputation on this. Or he might say it's not, and then he will tell us why. That's up to him. We have, the motion is passed, it's already been voted on, and...
Would you read back the motion, please? Bless you, Kathy.
Contact Steckbeck to review the detention stormwater basin, well, to review and advise on how to make the repairs.
Okay, that doesn't say a word. The word study is not mentioned in that motion.
No, to review
So-
and advise on how to fix the repairs, the sinkholes.
Just like to make sure that we adhere strictly to the motion, Jamie.
Is that about right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry I
fine.
used the word study.
Is that about right? Is that review and advise on how to do it?
I believe that Commissioner Ames made the motion. If that's what he says he said, then that's what he said.
No, that's what she said, I said.
No, I was just saying.
If he's agreeing that that's what he said.
I agree.